Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Let's Get Visible show and let's get started. Hello, and I changed my options so that I can do this. Boom! Turned off the overlay. So, welcome. This is the Let's Get Visible show every Thursday at 8 a.m. and we talk about the various ways you can get visible. So let's get visible. Now that I'm recording, we can get visible and have a replay. So welcome. This is Jane-Gardner for the Let's Get Visible show. Every Thursday at 8 a.m. we talk about the many ways you can get visible on the internet. You don't have to be invisible. You can be visible. So we are talking today about audio, voice, not having to get on camera, and talking and interviewing with your influencers in your industry. So we're going to get started because it's always a quick training. So let's get started and let's go and let's get visible. Welcome. I'm Jane Gardner. I work with my husband in a structural engineering firm in Western Canada for the last 22 years, and I'm out on the internet to help others get visible. And welcome. We travel. We got dogs and cats, and I'm an artist, and I have many websites you can check out. So that's my quick bio, and in 2018 I got interested in broadcasting to Roku and Amazon Fire TV, and I have 4 shows on there right now. Got to update this soon with a new show. And I have a TV channel system to get you from invisible to visible and doing your own TV channel, which has many options other than just doing TV shows. So let's go and have a look at this TV show, which I'm going to be putting up on my, I'll probably put it up on the Business of Home-Based Business, Home-Based Startup TV, and I might even put it on Business Success TV as a show, because it's called the Let's Get Visible show. So we had been talking about storytelling, and we talked about mindset and having the mindset to be confident enough to get visible. And we talked at least 4 episodes on your website and how you can use that to showcase who you are and get you visible to your audience who come to visit your website. And right now we're talking about your voice. No particular reason, but we're talking about interviews. And we'll be talking about YouTube, podcasting, books. And then after that, we'll be talking about your face. Get your face on camera and do video and do a show. Get out on social media and do some speaking on other people's shows. And as well, we'll be talking about text and how you can use that for book publishing, Medium, doing a newsletter, all kinds of things. So let's get visible. And, of course, we're going to talk about being in person. Now you can be in person on Zoom. You can do meetups even online versus even doing it on location. And summits, same thing, as well as events. Now we can do it virtually or locally. And so this is all got to do, wrap it up all with getting visible and saying that you have to network in order to get visible. So we will interview successful show entrepreneurs. We will do demonstrations of different tools, techniques, and trainings on being visible. And it's going to be a full year. So we already discussed why you should be visible and stop hiding behind your slides. You need to be the face of the business, show your personality on a regular basis, share your knowledge, share your value, and people will come back again and again to see your trainings. So mindset is everything. If you don't have the mindset of being willing to be brave and get out there and be visible, then you have to talk to someone about your mindset, because unfortunately humans like to connect with other humans. They don't like robots, they don't like slides, they like humans. So you're going to have to get your face onto camera, But for now, we're talking about doing your voice, which is the same thing in terms of your personality. It can get quite personable. And then, of course, we talked about how a website can make you visible, and we looked at the various ways you can put your messaging, you can have your personality on your website, showing who you are and selling your products and services while attracting people to come to your website. Last time we talked to you about how influencers can boost your business, and so we're going to be using our voice to interview, and that's what the topic is right now, is doing interviews. So we went over in quite a bit of detail about how you can find your influencers who might help you increase your reach, remembering, of course, that you have to have your website in place so that people who from their audience want to come and check you out, they can go to your website, etc. But today we're going to talk about how to secure and prepare for your interview. So, of course, you've identified about 25 influencers that you want to contact with, and we talked about ways that you can do that without it costing you any money on the last show. And today it's about securing your first influencer. So you've chosen your first influencer, and you start thinking about how to approach them. So once you have the list with whom you've actively engaged, you need to choose your first prospective interviewee and start thinking about how to approach them for the interview. Now remember, we're human, and the people who you think are influencers are also having challenges in their business, and as well as the internet audience gets bigger and bigger, there's less chance to engage with your audience. So whenever you go and you comment on one of their posts, they're paying attention and they'll remember your name. And so it's going to be very easy for you to find your first influencer, of course, and we've talked about how to do that and look at their key metrics. And so you start thinking about how you're going to approach them for an interview. Well, in order to conduct a productive interview that meets your marketing objectives, you need to create a good plan for carrying out the interview, and we'll talk about some of the ways you can do that. So first, you organize the background of your interview so that you can communicate this to the interviewee. So obviously, if they're interested in who you are and what you're sending to them, then they may have questions. So you want to make sure that the goal of your interview is appropriate to their business, and they'll want to know what they can do to prepare for their interview if they're interested. So first off, you have to make sure that it's clear as to what the theme and the background information that's required from them, what the theme is of your interview. And they will want to know, obviously, they'll have lots of questions because they don't know you. So you have to make sure that they're aware of what the focus is for your business, what the focus will be for the interview, and decide on the business topic that will be the focus of the interview, and who's the audience. What type of audience will the interview be aimed at, and how many people do you expect to hear it? So those are some of the standard questions that they will have if they're interested. And I'll tell you, I have 3 podcasts, and for one of them, I get on a regular basis, I get inquiries on someone who's interested in being interviewed on one of my shows. But unfortunately, they're quite detailed on who they are, maybe what the book is that they want to talk about, or what the theme is of what they want to talk about, and it's not relevant to what the theme is of my podcast. So it would be quite a challenge to twist the interview to make it work with my podcast. And so basically I've asked them in terms of not being interested in the interview because the theme of the show is so different from their theme of what they want to talk about. because, you have a certain audience and they're expecting certain things. So when you contact a potential interviewee through email, phone, or in person, use the research you've already done to talk to them. Make sure that it's personal, that it's addressing them by name, and then at least they should have some idea of who you are through your interactions, whether or not you talked gave them feedback on their questions, you replied to their emails, you commented on their blog, or you suggested something to them on Facebook, so that your contact and request is not completely out of the blue, because they may not be familiar with who you are unless you do that. So give the potential interviewee the information above about when what you goals and objectives are of your interview, and ask if they have any question. So ask them if they have any further questions, and remember that you're asking for the interview. Even though you see no reason why they should decline, it's not a given that they will agree to the interview. Their time is limited and they may get lots of requests from other people. So you need to have a plan on how to make it so it's easy for them to say yes to being interviewed by you. So you have to have a plan. You have to make it clear what the goals of the interview are, what you're going to be doing with it, where it's going to be, etc. So you have to approach potential interviewees humbly and keep in mind that you're asking them for a favor. You're asking them for their time. When you're actually asking them, you're also taking up their time or their virtual assistant's time in terms of asking them. So you have to make sure that your communication is short and concise. You should make sure your audience is your influencers like to be a busy person, so an overly long email that's full of text is more likely to sit in the inbox unread than one that gets right to the point. So you have to plan ahead for all of your potential steps in your interviewee. So you have to plan ahead to make sure that your interview has its goals listed, and you have somewhere on your website that talks about your interviews and who you're going to be doing them with, and etc., what the goal is of the website. You have to make sure it's concise and short that they're going to have. So we'll talk about in a minute some of the ways you can show to them that it's going to be very effective of their time to come and be interviewed by you. So once you've connected with your influencer and they've agreed to the interview, it's time to start preparing. So first, confirm the essential details of the interview. Be very clear on the time, date, and contact information. You can do that, or if they're not sure about their schedule, you can send them a time tracker or Calendly link for them to look at their time schedule and see when they can participate in your interview, and then they can pick that time. So if you've set it up in person, of course, you can talk to them over the phone and confirm once the details are all in writing. Try to make sure that the interviewee understands when and where the information will take place. So we will talk about different ways you can do the interview, but basically you have to set aside an hour, whether it's, even though the interview may only be 15 minutes, there will be 50 minutes of setup and then 50 minutes wrap up. So it's always good to set aside an hour for the schedule for an interview. So before the interview, confirm the interview's basic information. Possibly ask them where their bio is, what their history is, and how they want to be introduced. No matter what the focus of your interview, you should give the interviewee a chance to plug whatever they're currently up to. Ask them if, in addition to your topic, there's anything else they'd like to talk about, such as their new product launch or social media page or what they're doing at the moment. You always should make sure that you are aware that your influencer is doing you a favor in terms of taking some of their time to be on your show. At the same time, the interviewee is also aware that it is of benefit to them to do interviews and expand their reach. And even if you may not have as much audience as they would like, these are always going to be something they can promote in terms of expanding their audience. So it's a win-win situation for both of you if it goes well. So you should always prepare a good list of questions before the interview. I would suggest preparing the questions and sending them a week or even 2 weeks beforehand for the interviewee to look at them and maybe get prepared. Make them open-ended. That allows the interview to expand and talk at length. The best open-ended questions are how questions. When you ask someone how to do something or how something went, their answer will always be something detailed. So you always have to make sure you have the questions beforehand to your interviewee, at least a week before, so that they're not thinking at the same time as they're answering your questions. Try to put yourself in your audience's shoes. What would they like to know about the interviewee or the topic? Try to anticipate what the audience would like to know and write your questions on their behalf. Seasoned interviewers recommend writing a mix of pointed versus lighthearted questions. It's good to offer tough, pointed questions. For example, a marketer may say that it's good to create an elevator speech for meeting new people. Might say something like, some people may feel like they're not very genuine. How can you do that so you make sure you're still being real with the person? This sounds somewhat contrarian, but it really just challenges the interviewer to give the audience a deeper understanding of how to do an elevator speech from someone who does it all the time. However, if you ask nothing but pointed questions, your interview might be a little stressful for the interviewee. That's why it's always good to balance out your interview with the fun, lighthearted questions like, if you had a chance to go to lunch with a famous person, who would it be and what would your questions be? But always make sure that you prepare all these questions beforehand so they can have a think about it before they get to the interview. And of course, you can always ask obvious questions like, our listeners probably already know this, but can you explain what's the purpose of marketing? These extremely basic questions are nice because they allow your interviewee to express their own point of view. Another great strategy is to ask short, simple questions and then prepare longer follow-up questions. It can seem like a bit much to hit someone with a detailed, long-winded questions out of the blue, but if you ask a simple question and a follow-up with a detailed, you can get more insight into the person's ideas, while the first question sets the stage for the second one. You can also include hypothetical questions in your interview. These are questions that ask about the future. They can be what-if questions. You could also ask things like, if you could go back in time knowing what you know now. This is a very good question because the marketer experience, the experience on the internet is common for everyone, so they can relate and be relatable to your audience. So here are some great sample questions that you can customize for your interview. Where and how do you want your best work? How do you do, your best work? Who has the biggest influence on you? What was the most fateful moment or turning point for you? What was your biggest challenge? I like to ask, how did you find your purpose when talking to people on my Finding Your Purpose TV? And then, of course, we talk about their business and what they do in their business as the option for allowing them to promote their business. So what challenges do you see people facing today? What can they do to overcome them? How do you handle a common problem? What has surprised you the most along your journey? How do you structure your daily or weekly schedule and why? How do you balance work and life? What advice would you give our audience on this topic? How would you like to be remembered? What do you feel will be your legacy? And of course, the important one, what's next for you? So these are just some of the questions. Obviously, I wouldn't ask all these questions, or interviewee will wonder what happened. So other considerations for your interview is consider the environment where the interview will take place, decide how you will record it. Atmosphere can have an effect on the interview, and you want the interviewee to be as comfortable as possible. So you could do this virtually over Zoom. You could do it in person, but making sure that the environment that you're in doesn't have a high echo or lots of noise so they can't hear the interviewee. You can also this is something for you to consider as someone new to doing interviews, is of course you can do email interviews. So you could contact an influencer, tell them that you'd like their thoughts on these questions, like first get permission, talk to them about who you are, etc. And if they'll say okay, then send them some questions by email and give them a week or two to answer those emails and send it back to you. And then this can be an interview that you put on your website as being an interview with an influencer, because of course it was. So of course make sure you have all their background information to put on the same page so that people can understand who this person is and why they should pay attention to their answers to your questions. So you could have a running series on a topic such as finding your purpose, and you could send that question with a few more follow-up questions, obviously. Certainly one where they're promoting whatever they're doing now. You could do that at any time and first get permission, say they're interested in doing an email interview of questions about finding your purpose, and then give them the 3 questions. Make sure they're not too many, and give them a deadline of 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. You could also put all these answers into a book. There's many things you can do with interviews by email. So set up boundaries with the interviewee. Are there any topics they prefer not to talk about? Areas of the topic that are not knowledgeable about or comfortable with? Discuss this beforehand so the interview doesn't take a wrong turn and require you to edit parts out. You certainly don't want to have someone that is non-responsive to your questions, so that is the point about getting the questions to them beforehand and then feeding them the questions during the interview as appropriate, because that will make them much comfortable being prepared to answer those questions. So you could, of course, send the interviewee a detailed list of topics you'll discuss, the actual questions. They can prepare the answers ahead of time and let you know if there's any question they'd rather skip. Finally, give the interviewee an idea of what to expect post-interview. For example, tell them that you'll give them a review copy before it's published in case they want to change anything. Let them know where and when the interview will drop and when it's published. Provide them with a link or a download or a recording of that interview if you're doing it by voice, and they can put it on their website wherever appropriate and promote it to their audience. So at all times, you have to treat your interviewee with respect. Remember that they are taking time out of their day to do this with you, and so you have to respect their time and space. So you set a time limit for the interview and stick to it. If you find yourself running out of time during the interview, you should drop some of the weaker questions rather than running overtime. And remember again that your interviewee is doing you a favor and taking time out of their day to answer your questions. So you should also always be organized. Do a practice run on your own to make sure all the technical aspects run smoothly, that everything's recording properly, the camera's working if you're using a camera or not. Do everything you need to do well in advance so that you arrive at the appointed time and place prepared and ready to go. Don't make the interviewee wait. You should know as much as possible about the interviewer. You may ask basic questions for the sake of your audience, such as for our audiences members who may not know, tell everyone exactly what it is you do. But you yourself should know exactly what the person does. You should know as much detail about them as possible, otherwise you may insult them. Finally, it's a good idea to read or listen to other interviews that the person has done in the past. This will give you an idea of what to expect, make you even better informed about them, and offer some ideas or direction to take your interview. Knowing what they're doing now will help you know what to ask in terms of questions and prepare yourself beforehand. So we talked last time about identifying 20 influencers and record their information, their email, their phone number, their address, whatever you feel you need in order to contact them. Narrow it down to the top 5 and document 3 places you can reach these influencers and create a relationship within that time. And list 3 aspects about your business that would be of value for the influencers and maybe where you could give them a resource or something and promote the influencer while they always need to have people commenting on whatever they do in social media. And once you've done that, for the first interviewee, you can list 2 focus areas or topics for interviews you'd like to conduct. And list 5 questions you could ask around the 2 previous topic areas. And that will get you started in thinking about how to do interviews with influencers. And I believe next time we will be talking about what kind of message you can write or letter you can write to the influencer in order to get them to be really excited about having an interview with you. Because until they know you a little bit, you're not going to be getting any kind of interview. They get many interview requests and probably ignore most of them. So you need to be engaging, have an interesting topic, etc. All that kind of stuff we'll talk about at another time. So is there any questions about this? It's quite detailed, but that's okay. We're still going to be talking about interviews next time. And so the next time will be every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific because I value visibility, authenticity, and consistency. You can get on the email notification list at http://jgtips.com/lets for tips, freebies, checklists, notifications, and offers to help you grow your business to become visible from what it was. And one of the other shows that you can also go to, the Let's Go Live show on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. It also is talking about how you can get on camera and do a show. Doing a show will be one of the ways that you can attract influencers, certainly. And so basically that's what we're going to be talking about next time, is getting the influencer interested in what you're doing and how to get it into getting you a bigger audience, a bigger reach, getting more visible. And so we're going to be talking about that, I think, next time. And yeah, so this is basically, I better start doing this myself. I don't know. Maybe I should. Maybe I should do a podcast on Let's Get Visible. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm always thinking. So yeah, and contact influencers and say you want to be on my show, etc. And yeah, you never know. So there you go. It's always good to talk about getting visible. And I've got to get a freebie for you so you can opt into my list and get notifications. So see you next time. Definitely, at the least, come over onto YouTube to my YouTube channel at ampersand, or whatever. Is that ampersand?